forward, please, and lead us in the invocation.
Father, Mother, God, let us take a moment to remember all the faiths, religions, and beliefs represented in the worldwide family of mankind. Let us recall that when we are invited to serve, we are not asked if we are a Protestant, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Jew, a Catholic, or a Buddhist. We are not asked because all faiths are welcome in the family. Please join me in a moment of reflection and thanks with these words. With our friends beside us and no person beneath us, with the bonds of love between us and our worries behind us, with our goals before us and no task beyond us, with a thirst for knowledge and a dream for a better world, Father, let us be faithful witnesses to the power of your love. Let our lives mirror hope. Let our deeds be filled with compassion. Let our words be truthful. Let our forgiveness build new bridges of reconciliation. Let your Spirit fill us with courage and hope. We ask and pray for this in thy name. Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
With that, I will open the November 18th, 6 p.m. evening session, regular session of the City Council. Would you do the roll call, Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Old? Here. Ms. Graves?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mayor Winger?
Here. One preliminary comment. Welcome, Mr. Old. We're glad to have you, and we hope it will be a very productive year for all of us, and we certainly welcome your contributions. So welcome.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Agenda additions, deletions, and so on. There appear to be two items. 3.2 seems to be the same thing as 7A under the city managers. Is that right or wrong?
That has been removed from under city managers, and it's under consent agenda. I think there was a typo on that.
All right.
So we're going to leave that under consent agenda if that's all right with council.
All right. Are there any other agenda additions, deletions, or changes?
Yes, Mayor. Staff has one. We'd like to add an item under the consent agenda, item 3.3, which is a license agreement for a dock and boat lift constructed on the city-owned submerged lands. The address is 15 Sailfish Road, and you have the backup material in front of you.
All right. With those changes, do I have...
Move for approval as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. That will bring us to the proclamations. I have the pleasure of reading the first one, which I'll read as follows. The Vero Beach Choral Society, VBCS, was founded in 1984 and rapidly gained support from the community. And whereas the VBCS has consistently performed concerts of choral music, classical to modern, along with organ recitals with a high degree of artistic merit year after year. And whereas the dedicated members of VBCS have provided many outstanding local performances as well as accepting invitations to participate in choral events around the United States and in Europe. And whereas VBCS, a 501c3 registered nonprofit corporation, funds and administers a scholarship program for higher education of local music students. And whereas the study of music transforms students into multidimensional individuals, and by expressing themselves musically, they build self-esteem, enhance teamwork skills, learn the value of sustained effort, and become more disciplined. And whereas by supporting the VBCS and encouraging young musicians, it preserves the classical music traditions that are a hallmark of a cultural society. Now, therefore, the City of Vero Beach, Florida, does hereby congratulate the Vero Beach Choral Society on the celebration of its 30th anniversary and thank them for providing for concerts that enhance the community culture and environment, and wish them outstanding success in the years ahead. And by all means, all members of the group that are here can come forward, and we'd like to have a spokesman and have some comment, please.
Where do you want me to go, sir?
Right to the dais, please. My name is Marie Sabati, and I am the president of the Vero Beach Choral Society this year. We thank you for allowing us to come in. What a beautiful pledge that was. We are a choral society. We are professional and semi-professional musicians from the local community, which I think is important because there are a lot of visitors that come in, but we are all local. And we practice once a week. We give 2 or 3 concerts a year. But Jason, our conductor, he will fill you in on all the musical part of it. I would like to speak to you about the scholarship program. We invite students from Vero Beach High School, the charter school, and Sebastian River. They have to be local. To audition for $1,000 a year for our 4 years of the scholarship. At the present time, we happen to be helping 5 students, a saxophonist, 2 violins, a voice, and a percussion. They are doing all extremely well. They have to maintain a B average at least, or higher, of course. They have to stay in the music program, so therefore they have to take music classes. But because we have such a wonderful school district that does such wonderful music programs, we have a great need for scholarship in music because there are many, many students that are talented and who need help. So this has been the thrust of what we do besides entertain and sing. Jason.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the Vero Beach City Council. I'm Dr. Jason Hobroch, the Artistic Director of the Vero Beach Choral Society. Since being founded by Dr. Ray Adams in 1984, the Vero Beach Choral Society has endeavored to bring the best of historical and contemporary choral music to our Vero Beach community. Our repertoire spans centuries, from the Middle Ages to the 21st century, and spans the globe. The Vero Beach Choral Society draws from this vast trove to celebrate the life we enjoy in Vero Beach, from programs celebrating the beauty of our Indian River Lagoon to programs celebrating our common bonds of love, joy, and hope. Within an atmosphere of mutual support and respect, continued learning, and perpetual challenge, the Vero Beach Choral Society strives for excellence in every program we offer. And in those programs, we offer audiences both the familiar and the challenging, those works we love to hear and sing, and those which we haven't heard before. And so that you may also enjoy this great music firsthand, I would like to present you with some complimentary tickets to our holiday concert program in December. And on behalf of the Vero Beach Choral Society, I thank you for your recognition of 30 years of bringing quality, well-prepared choral music to our community. And I look forward to celebrating the next 30 years of making fine music in Vero Beach.
Tell us when that event is for the general public,
Sure.
when and where and all those particulars.
Sure. It's we have our concert is entitled Tidings of Joy, Songs for the Season, and it occurs on December the 12th. That's a Friday evening at 7:30 p.m. and December the 14th. That's a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock p.m. All performances are at Trinity Episcopal Church over on Royal Palm Avenue at the corner of 10th Street. So
Wonderful. Well, come forward and your proclamation. Like to
you can fight over them.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
you get good at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have the next one, Mrs.? Mr. Kramer has it.
Ms. Feeney? Yeah, I'll go ahead and read this one if you guys want to come up to the podium. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation, and I'll have you say a few words if you would. The proclamation states, whereas Vero Beach strives to be a community of kindness, and the principles of compassion lies at the heart of all social, ethical, and moral traditions, and it is necessary to practice compassion and be more compassionate, considerate, respectful, accepting, and inclusive of others in both private life and in the public sector, especially in government, business, education, and the media. And compassion is essential to all relationships, to our sense of fulfillment, and is integral to our quality of life and sense of community. And diversity of culture, experiences, viewpoints, backgrounds, beliefs, and lifestyles make up the very foundation of the formation of our country. And Compassion Week is November 10th through 16th, 2014. And with that, the City Council of Vero Beach does hereby encourage all citizens to join our commitment for greater compassion in our community by hereby proclaiming the month of January of 2015 as Compassionate Vero Month.
Thank you. I appreciate all of the attention you've paid to that. Compassion Vero is an organization whose mission transcends religious, ideological, and national differences. Supported by leading thinkers from many traditions, Compassion Vero activates the golden rule around the world. Compassion Vero is a cooperative effort to restore not only compassionate thinking, but more importantly, compassionate action to the center of moral, political, and religious life. Compassion is the principal determination to put ourselves in the shoes of others and lies at the heart of all religious and ethical systems. Thank you. You want to share a little bit about what we're doing?
Compassion Vero was formed by a group of local community leaders representing the different agencies and groups in town, and we're looking forward to providing a lot of educational items, gatherings and social gatherings, and just helping to make our community a much more compassionate community. And we'll be having an event that will celebrate our Compassion Vero month in January, so more to be shared on that. And our website is compassionvero.org, so we invite everybody to visit that and learn about our mission and join us as friends of Compassion Vero. So thank you. I have a little packet of information for each one of the council members, too. Bumper stickers.
Excuse me.
Not my strong point.
Thank you. Flowers and blue. Thank you.
She was visiting us. They are, but it feels good.
At this stage of flight, you know, we should center ourselves here. We have to center ourselves here.
Sorry.
Dropped off there.
Can Michelle Van Keulen please come up? Okay, I'll read your proclamation. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers and is currently the fourth leading cause of cancer-related deaths in the United States, and an estimated 46,420 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States this year, and 39,590 will die from the disease, with approximately 2,890 pancreatic cancer deaths in Florida. And within the first year of their diagnosis, 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die, and 94% of patients die within the first 5 years. And the lack of early detection has not changed much in over 40 years, and pancreatic cancer is anticipated to move from the fourth to the second leading cause of cancer deaths by 2020. And the best advocate for raising money and encouraging research are the survivors of this disease. But with so few survivors, the spotlight on pancreatic cancer shines very weakly. It is up to family and friends who have lost loved ones to step up and bridge the gap. And the good health and well-being of the residents of Vero Beach, Florida are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, does hereby proclaim the month of November 2014 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month and commend the Purple of Hope Foundation on its hard work for speaking out for those who are fighting and for all those whose voices have been silenced from this disease.
On behalf of Cheryl M. Van Kullen and the Purple of Hope Foundation, I would like to thank the City of Vero Beach and City Council members for this proclamation to help make people more aware of pancreatic cancer. Pancreatic cancer is an insidious disease that destroys lives and families with diagnosis. The average life expectancy from the time of diagnosis is only 4 to 6 months. If there were 1,000 people diagnosed today with pancreatic cancer, next year on this day, only 60 people would be surviving. In 5 years from today, there would only be 15 of those original people. If the people who raise money and awareness for cancer are usually the survivors, and we really don't have many survivors from pancreatic cancer, because not a lot of money is allotted to pancreatic cancer, then we need to start making more people aware of this disease. The Cheryl M. Van Kullen Purple of Hope Foundation was created to help families with pancreatic cancer and to bring more awareness to communities. I started this foundation because I made a promise to my mom. Well, he had the picture. Who fought for 15 months and lost her battle on November 17th of 2012. I promised my mom that I would continue the fight until we find a cure. So that is what I am doing. I am spreading awareness, raising money, and helping families so that they do not suffer the way our family suffered. I've also gone back to college to get my PhD in molecular biology. The month of November is Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, and purple is the color for pancreatic cancer. I asked businesses and families to put a purple light on in honor of those fighting and in memory of those who have passed from pancreatic cancer. Each year, I would love to see more and more purple and eventually have all of Indian River County purple for November. I have a purple ribbon for each one of you. Please continue to wear your purple for the month of November. And thank you for your time.
Let me pass them out. Can you pass them out?
All right, thank you. I lost a brother. I know what you're feeling, yes.
You so much. You did a great job.
Okay. She was trying not to.
She's a teenager.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us on to public comment. We don't have any prearranged public comment tonight. I would like to tell you that you can have public comment after any item on the agenda before City Council acts on it. City Council is really a legislature, and we set policy. The city manager and staff really run the city. We like to listen to facts, and we like to listen to opinion. With that, anybody on the right side of the room like to come forward, or left side, Mr. Gorey, you certainly come forward. You raised your hand.
Thank you very much, Mayor, council members. I'm coming, for the record, Peter Gorey, 2421 Granada Avenue in Vero Beach. I just want to give a very brief overview of some of the issues and concerns regarding All Aboard Florida. And I have talked to Ken Dage about this. I'm going to write these out in longer forms after the outline, but just raise some of the issues that I have done some research on. I was at the, as many of you were, at the presentations at the college, and I did have long discussions on technical issues, on economic issues, and obviously on the safety issues. So just to get to it, the first item is frequency. And this is order of magnitude because I'm obviously dealing with prospective numbers. But the 2017 projections are 20 freight and 32 all-aboard Florida trains coming through the city of Vero Beach. And the way this is calculated, however, that's what they say daily, is they said, well, we do it by week. There's 364 trains per week at that level. However, there are fewer freight trains on the weekends. And not only that, but the daily train traffic obviously varies day by day. Now, getting into daily traffic, I did a calculation based on those numbers. Again, it's order of magnitude, not specificity. Between 7 and 9 a.m., there'll be 8 trains. Between 11 and 1 p.m., there'll be 9. And between 4 and 7, there'll be 12. That's 29 during the peak travel hours, which is probably about 37.5% of the total day. If you extrapolate that for the times from 7 to in the morning to 7 at night, it's close to 35, 36, which is almost 72% of the train traffic in those hours. Now, one of the interesting issues is that the north and southbound trains, all aboard Florida trains, cross at Aviation Boulevard in the city of Vero Beach, the northbound and the southbound. And that will occur between 8 in the morning and 10 at night. There's a single train at 7 and a single train at 11, north and south. The length of freight trains now can extend to 12,000 feet, which is 2.3 miles, and as you know, the city limits that the train goes through is about 2 miles. Costs and economics. Amtrak's Acela, which is the high-speed rail, from New York to Boston is 240 miles. Acela, in 2012, averaged 12,000 riderships one way per day at a minimum fare of 160 between D.C. and New York and Boston. What that means is that the 12,000 per day were from all of those routes, New York to Boston, Boston to Washington to New York. Sorry. Acceler serves station stops at major areas from D.C. to Boston for commuters, tourists, business travel. So a round trip for one is $320 minimum, plus other portal-to-portal expenses, which I'll get into. There's also significant, obviously, intermodal connectivity at the stations, whether it's subways or buses or commuter trains and taxis and rental cars and so forth. Acceler is also advantaged by providing an option to frequent severe weather, which impedes vehicular and air traffic during the winter months. Technically, equipment. Diesel locomotives are less accommodating than electric, with slower acceleration and deceleration, as well as the fact that the electric speeds are faster. To my knowledge, throughout the world, virtually every high-speed rail is electric. Acceler passenger traffic has dedicated tracks in the Northeast Corridor. The track classes for U.S. railroads are from 1 to 8. As you go each one further, there's a higher speed limit and more stringent standards on at-grade crossings. Class 6 track is up to 120 miles an hour, and all of these are for both freight and passenger. Class 7 is up to 125 miles an hour, which has stricter standards. Class 8, which is over 125 miles an hour, it's prohibited to have at-grade crossings. So the bottom line is that, as I had understood it, the train is going to come through Vero Beach at about 103 miles an hour. I do not know what track class it is, but at 100 miles an hour, that's about 1.5 miles a minute. Safety. Safety has been heralded as the prime concern. Now, the options for Vero Beach are the safest is obviously no at-grade crossings. The Federal Rail Association had made recommendations to eliminate 2 crossings at the post office and at the flyover. The next lesser safe is obviously eliminate the flyover. And of course, the worst case is no change. There are 7 grade crossings in City of Vero Beach, as I understand, and there are fewer than 10 in the 240-mile route from New York City to Boston for Acceler. Finally, travel time. Miami to Orlando by train is projected at under 3 hours, with 2 intermediate station stops. Additional stops would likely increase the train time to well over 3 hours. Total travel time, portal to portal, includes to and from departure station to the final destination. You need to get a taxi, bicycle, rental car, you have to park, and you have travel time to the station, and you have wait time for this train to come through, and the bottom line is that it increases cost and travel time for those prospective passengers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person who would like to come forward, Mrs. Fry, I think it is.
Good evening. Phyllis Fry, 275 Date Palm Road. Congratulations on the election. It's nice to see you all sitting where you are. And Mr. Ohl, welcome. You're in good company, I'm sure you know. So I wanted to talk about safety. As a former FAA safety check airman, I'm concerned by the proposed operations of All Aboard Florida. The purpose of our flight standards operations was to prevent accidents before they happened. In the researching the safety records of the FEC corridor, which All Aboard Florida intends to share, and the DEIS study, I'm concerned by the safety statistics. The Federal Railway Administration database, Part 1.12, shows that the Southeast FEC corridor leads the state and is second in the nation for all rail deaths. During the past 10 years, crossing deaths in the FEC corridor account for over 1/3 of all events in Florida. Random crossing deaths are, quote, epidemic in our area, end quote, according to the FRA, and account for 50% of all events in the entire state. The FRA database Part 5.15 and 2.07 per their links show there were 272 fatalities in the FEC corridor during the past 15 years. The most recent was November 14th, this past Friday, when Tri-Rail hit a vehicle in Fort Lauderdale, killing its passenger. Currently, we have 14 freight trains per day transiting Vero Beach. All Aboard Florida and FEC intend to increase that number to 52 trains per day, as per the DEIS Table 3.3-1. That is an increase of over 370% in frequency and a near doubling of speed at 110 miles per hour, and therefore an increase in the probability or the opportunity of fatalities. Operating at closure rates of 220 miles per hour through an unprecedented number of crossings, 349 along the route and 159 at grade, the number of crossings transited will exceed 11,800 per day, each presenting a heightened opportunity for fatalities. According to a recent FEC public presentation by Robert Hatfield at the Port of Miami, cargo will double in the next 10 years. This projected increase in freight carrying toxic and explosive materials alongside All Aboard Florida's 32 high-speed rail passages per day is an unprecedented risk. In recent studies, 3 major U.S. rail companies decided to disallow high-speed rail operations, freight, simultaneously in the interest of safety. The FRA Highway Rail Safety Grade Crossing Guidelines show that trains at higher speeds increase derailment and collision potential, and Frank Szabo, Chief Administrator of the FRA, stated that the best safety measure would be have no at-grade crossings. All Aboard Florida has 0 operating experience, 0, and no track record. All Aboard Florida does not have an assigned safety officer. At the Fort Lauderdale EIS public presentation, I pointed out to John Winkle, director of the FRA, that nowhere was anything about safety presented to the public. He replied, quote, "We wanted to keep that a separate issue," end quote. I can understand why. If you haven't read the DEI's response from Indian River County, I hope you will. It's deficient on numerous issues, as was reported by Attorney Reingold today, and nowhere more than safety. We ask this council to accept responsibility for protecting the lives of the public, and we ask that you put safety first and pass a strong resolution that is emphatically opposed to All Aboard Florida operations within the FEC corridor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fry. Who else would like to come forward, please? On the right-hand side, I see a gentleman towards the back. Or whoever.
Hello, my name is Robert Faylong. I live at 1705 40th Avenue. Thank you, Council, Mayor. I'm here to address safety as well, but safety in our neighborhoods. Where I live, drivers use that street for a cut-through from Rosewood School right there on 16th Street down 40th Avenue to get to Route 60, and they just fly down my road all the time. For the record, I'm asking for a stop sign to be put in right in the middle of that street there on 40th Avenue on 18th Street to slow traffic down. Right around the school is Rosewood School, and the baseball fields are there. The Little League baseball fields are right there. And I know all my neighbors, they're always complaining about the traffic. And years ago, you lowered the speed limit to 25, which was a great idea. But in reality, it doesn't slow drivers down at all. They just make that turn or whatever from 16th Street or down on 18th Street down there to come up, and or 20th Street down there. They just fly right through my neighborhood all the time. So for the record, for the safety of the children, I'm asking for a stop sign there.
Mr. O'Connor,
Yes, sir, we will certainly address that. And as I understand it, it's at 40th and 18th?
Yes, right there.
Okay,
Yes.
what I'll do is have the police and also Public Works check it out.
I've talked to the police officers many times and also to the chief of the traffic there. And a few times they've even put the big machine there that tells you the radar, how fast they're going. Sure, it's there for a day or two. It's nice, it slows traffic down, but then it's gone, and then the cars are still just...
Well, I think it's an alternate, they take it as an alternate to 43rd, don't
Yes,
they?
yeah, oh yes, yeah. They use it
Because it's the first alternate to the east and
Yes.
the only one that really goes all the way through.
Yes, so I think a good beginning would be a stop sign there. I've been to neighborhood very similar to mine in St. Pete, where they not only the stop signs, but they also implemented speed bumps. But that's something, maybe if the stop sign doesn't work, we can talk about that down the road.
We will check it out, and if there's no problem with it, we'll put a stop sign up. And if did you get his name and number? As long as we have contact information, what we will do is give you notices to where we are. And if you have an email address that you can sort of drop by here.
Okay, sure.
Not to make it public or anything, but
okay.
That way I can sort of keep you in the loop as I communicate with our traffic control folks.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Further comment, public comment? Yes, sir, the gentleman in the purple shirt.
Thank you. I'm Haynes McDaniel, 2715 52nd Avenue. Would just like to make a comment regarding what was said about All Aboard Florida and the safety. Safety is a most highly important factor. I think we all agree with that. However, point was made about a fatality recently concerning a tri-rail train. That is a different track than All Aboard Florida is planning to use. It doesn't make it any less serious, but my understanding is that they are planning to use the Florida East Coast tracks to Miami, and I feel that maybe there may have been a miscalculation there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Further public comment? Gentleman over to the right, I thought I saw you.
Thank you very much. My name is Donald Hood. I live at 440th Court Southwest. I have a lot of concerns about the All Aboard Florida project, but has nothing to do with some of the concerns that are voiced in public. The biggest concern I have is that there's been no concern on the part of county and city governments to address whether the people want it or not in this community. What I find as I go around the community and ask questions, a lot of people, most people I've talked to have not even heard of it. Most are going to see comments from the press journal, but the press journal only, by their own admission, only reaches about 30% of this county. Besides that, the press journal is in the business of selling papers, and they're not necessarily headquartered in Vero Beach either. Their headquarters are further south, and so the concerns of other counties about bridge closures and access for boaters seems to get the number one attention, and we're kind of being wagged by the dog. It's their concern. It shouldn't be a concern of this county. My concern is, as a private citizen, I want to see them stop here. I can't fly anymore. I would love to use the train. I would love to have a stop in Vero Beach. And that's not out of the question if we stop all this asinine fighting and take a look at what the advantages are of this county. I've attended numerous meetings of the All Aboard Florida Vero Beach Committee, and just off the top of my head, I came up with 18 reasons why it would make good sense for Vero Beach. These are all part of the findings of that committee. We could really use one here. It's not out of the cards. It really isn't. And one of the actions I think this council ought to be looking at is what we can do to actually get them to stop here. When I went to the event at the college and talked to some of the All Aboard Florida representatives, they said it's not out of the cards at some future date. What they have to do is to prove that their original plan for the original stops in Palm Beach and Cocoa and Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Orlando all make sense. Once they turn a profit, they're going to look at adding other stops on the Treasure Coast. And the way that would happen is 1 or 2 trains a day would stop in Vero Beach, or more likely Fort Pierce, because Vero Beach is so antagonistic against the project. But 2 in the morning and 2 in the evening. So it gives you a chance to at least have some commuter connection and to other parts of the state. Another thing that concerns me is almost all of the negative comments you see, no one has asked these individuals whether they're representing themselves or political action groups. In most cases, they're coming from political action groups, and these PACs are located in Jupiter and Jensen Beach area. It's kind of migrated north. Real estate agents have gotten involved with this. There was a very rich man who I will not name from the Jupiter area who swore up and down this would never happen, and he's been spearheading this thing to try and get the Solid Board Florida project stopped. Well, let me say this about that. One of the other things I learned about at the meeting at the college was this is a done deal. This is not a public hearing where you can say something's going to happen here, something's going to happen there. The money has already been approved. They're going to go through this and put the railroad in place. Now, what will happen is if there's a mitigating factor, if there's a dangerous crossing and that needs to be addressed, that will be addressed. That will be fixed. But mark my words, this is going to happen. So if what I heard from the FRA and from all aboard Florida at that meeting is true, and I have every reason to believe it is, then we should be looking at what we can do in this city, in this county, to get a stop here. There's plenty of benefits to this. There really are. It's worth taking a look at the logs from the committee to see that list of 18 that I laid out. But believe me, there are 18 reasons. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Further public comment? Yes, sir.
This is in regards to.
Could you come forward to the microphone? Otherwise, we can't get you on television. We want you on television.
My name's Robert D. Clements, Sr. I'm a recent permanent employee of Vero Beach, and that took place after I had to go through almost 15 years of having my youngest son living in Vero Beach, calling me each winter all through it and said, "Well, Dad, how's the weather up there? I have been swimming today, 80-some degrees. How's the weather, you say? 0 temperature, below?" That's Indiana, Indianapolis, which is right now down in the 15 degrees or less. Anyway, I finally gave in last year, came up, got a home, and I already registered to vote, and I reconciled to the idea of retiring. And I hate to say it, but I resisted until now. A year ago, I came down and retired, and I'm 87 now. Oh well, I always like to work and be busy, but I got interested in something very much here, and I read the paper here, so that updates me on a lot of things going on. AAF was a big one that attracted my attention. I read a lot of opinions, people that's living here and what problems they've already had, and they see more coming and everything. And I wrote a letter and put an opinion. It hasn't been printed in the newspaper yet. However, I'd like to read it to you. I did present a copy to the members here, and I enjoy attending for the first time, but it's very important. These were people who was having problems, but they didn't bring up one problem, a big problem, and that is what I'm going to read to you. And I brought up some others that put quite a bit in there, and I think it's important that we consider the most important thing, and that is people's livelihood. I'll read it to you. This is a commentary I gave to the paper. They haven't got it in yet. Said, well, we'll have to wait your turn. So now I'm here. Thank goodness. I appreciate it. I've been a busy man working. Was a workaholic. So be it. Now I'm not. But I sure have to make a comment. And this is important to the board. Very important. But let me read it to you. And then that covers a big group right here. I am a new permanent resident of Vero Beach, Florida, and reading a lot about AAF. My opinion is the original second route is the best. That's 95 route. It has the right-of-ways. It has crossovers already in place, no high-density population along the route. Also on the proposed AAF route, which will affect timely crossovers to hospitals, I propose we make a list of people's names who are supporting AAF route so that we, opponents to the current AAF route, can all sue the supporters for each person who has a heart attack on or another condition that will result in their deaths as a result of not having convenient, quick direction to hospital services. That is so critical. That's important. Life and death is very important. I know I appreciate 87 years, and I plan on going for a while yet. Of course, there will be many other reasons to sue. Real estate, decreased values, businesses inconveniences, and customer support. Boat routing delays at the Roosevelt Bridge. This is some of the things I read. And other such delays for boats with increased boat operations while waiting to get through, gas, etc., etc., etc. That adds up a lot of expense waiting their turn to get through. And other such delays for boats and increased boat operations while waiting. Long list that makes AAF proposal ridiculous. Also, the action of Panama and the increase of more freight train activity on the same tracks, lines, at the same hours per day, and result in less time for all other activities in the areas of the cities between Miami and Orlando. I read about a lot of it. Wow. Why not use a much shorter, less densely populated route through Central Florida? And of course, all I understand is what I've got down here. I didn't study it any further. With the reading of September 18th commentary, all board Florida in TC Scripps Treasure Coast newspaper, page 98A, and my comments with holding a group of people in political and business positions And people who don't care who dies just because of wanting stupid things, then help me. Work together to get this total list of these positions, details, names, addresses, etc., about each of the people supporting AAF. And suing is a legal way to help people's families who die because of AAF. Now, if there was nothing else under the sun except that one thing, because people won't take action, and they can promise all kinds of things, and from what I hear in other cities where they had their controlled meetings, they just browsing through. I can see it because I've been around a long time, and I've seen a lot of political operations in other cities, and I've had the opportunity to spend so much time in Washington, in Canada, and travel a lot in business operations, and I know what I'm writing about and what I wrote about.
Thank you for writing and coming forward.
Thank you.
Okay, further public comment. All right, I see none, so therefore I'll close public comment. That would bring us to the consent agenda. Is there anyone that wants to pull an item for discussion, please? If there is none, is there anyone like to make a motion? Yes, thank you. Anyone like to make a comment on any of the three items here that are on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none.
Motion for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It passes 5-0. Well, Mr. Old, we should give you a reading test and let you read 4A, but you know what I think I'm going to do? That's just a joke. We have to have a little levity somehow. I'm going to let Mrs. Bach read it because I don't want to read it either.
An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, providing and establishing revisions to the budget for the City of Vero Beach, Florida, for the period beginning October 1st, 2013, and ending September 30th, 2014, by increasing the general fund by $226,402, by decreasing the street paving and drainage fund by $72,193, by increasing the electric fund by $1,116,823, by increasing the electric R&R fund by $113,466, by decreasing the water and sewer fund by $263,035, by decreasing the water and sewer R&R fund by $48,365, by decreasing the airport fund by $37,148, by decreasing the airport construction fund by $759,398, by increasing the marina fund by $15,394, by decreasing the solid waste fund by $1,185, by increasing the recreation fund by $117,510, by increasing the recreation construction fund by $26,000, by decreasing the risk management fund by $320,581, by increasing the confiscated property fund by $2,500, by increasing the law enforcement education fund by $7,500, by increasing the Crestlawn Cemetery Trust fund by $8,986, all from revised revenue expenditure and transfer estimates.
This is the final reading of this, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Staff comment, please.
I have promised Tammy that by next year we will find a way to do this resolution or ordinance with a much shorter title. We believe that can be accomplished. So that's our goal for next year. The item you have before you, Mr. Mayor and members of council, is the second reading of our first and final amendment for fiscal year 13-14, the one that just ended on September the 30th. As we discussed before, it's based on our most current estimates of revenues and expenses, pending our final closeout and the preparation of our audited financial statements. Again, again, nothing really major or unexpected thanks to our quarterly monitoring with the Finance Commission of our actuals versus our budget. The general fund increases have been absorbed within the original unappropriated surplus. The electric utility amendment you have in front of you is consistent with our most recent rate sufficiency analysis, and this amendment was reviewed and unanimously approved by the Finance Commission back on October 23rd. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have prior to adoption.
Before we do that, any public comment on this? What this is a truing up of last year's expenditures required under state law. So that's what we're doing here. Any council comment? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
Second. Go ahead.
Mr. Kramer seconded. This requires a roll call.
Yes. Mr. Old?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. All right, this will move us to 4B, resolutions, and this is the final reading of this, or it was amended last time, and if it's passed, it will be final. Is that correct?
Yes, this is the final.
All right, and also anything else having to do with this, I will read it, but there was also a feeling that it should fit in with what the county's doing, so we should discuss that if that's an issue. Anyway, I'll read it as follows. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, expressing opposition to All Aboard Florida's high-speed rail project, providing for an effective date requested by City Council. I'll ask for staff comment, please.
I think we've accommodated the request and the changes that were made. This also had a viewing and discussion at the Railroad Commission meeting as well.
All right, well, public comment. I see Mr. Day.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Welcome back, members, and welcome our new member, Mr. Old. Real happy to see you there, and hope you enjoy your stay with us at City Council. I have for your information and your consideration, today the Indian River County Commissioners voted to adopt the comments on the draft environmental impact statement and Section 4F, evaluation for the All Aboard Florida, Orlando to Miami, Florida Intercity Passenger Rail Project, presented by the County Attorney, Daniel Rangel. This is my note. This document is a broad overview for Indian River County, and also from VeroNews.com. With Tuesday's action, the Commission approved an additional $40,000 to cover additional fees and costs associated with the review of and response to the draft environmental impact study, as well as $25,000 for outside legal counsel versed in state law. That counsel would be called upon to advise the county on its legal rights and responsibilities with respect to the rail project. Please note, and I think you've all received a copy prior to the meeting, April 16, 2014, Work Order Number 10, pursuant to that certain containing contract agreement for professional services entered into as of December 6, 2011, agreement by and between Indian River County, a political subdivision of the state of Florida, County, and CDM Smith, Inc., formerly Camp Dresser McKee, Inc., consultant. Exhibit A, scope of work. First, the first paragraph, background. The remaining 9 crossings are either at city intersections or crossings of privately owned land. In addition, there are 2 Florida Department of Transportation crossings, my note, the twin pairs, within the county that will be excluded from the scope of services. The county has requested the services of CDM Smith, Inc., consultant, to review the EIS on behalf of the Public Works Department, my note, Indian River County Public Works, and provide comments to the county relative to all 30 crossings. A2, other services not included in the scope of services. Line 3, meetings with the Department of Transportation and/or All Aboard Florida. A3, other items not included in the scope of services are, line 4, review relative to city-owned or privately owned crossings within the county, approximately 11 crossings. It does not appear the concerns of the City of Vero Beach are being thoroughly addressed. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thanks very much.
Further public comment. Mrs. Manous?
Honey Manous with the Indian River Neighborhood Association. I live here in the city, 27 Starfish Drive. I'd like to congratulate our new council member, Randy Old, and Mayor Winger and Vice Mayor Kramer, and 2015 council that I feel very positive is going to work together and face the challenges that our city is giving you. I've been here before, and I mentioned the coalition that we put together, TIC, Train Impact Coalition, very simple. What we did was we're every imaginable organization from North County to South County. We all have an interest in protecting our particular interests, our communities, and this is what we've done. We were preparing for the release of the environmental impact statement draft. Well, the draft came out, and I've spoken to you about this before. They are missing Indian River County. We are practically ignored. And it's huge. I gave you a list of the 34 appendices that were required. And to fully understand and design an impact on our county, we need that information. We can't go forward without it. We responded specifically. Our purpose is to insert ourselves into the process and identify impacts. If they haven't identified them, we're going to do it. And let me tell you, our job is cut out for us. On the issue of freight, they reference expanded freight service, but there's no explanation. We need a clarification. To be a credible draft environmental impact statement, we need estimates for rail lines that are shared with passenger service and freight transport. It's necessary in order to respond to projected speed, length, and crossings per day and per hour. We need to understand what full and partial capacity is, and any assumptions have to disclose the methodology and the reasoning underlying these estimates. I thank Mr. Gorey for the work that he's done earlier, that he mentioned his research before. We also don't know their land ownership. There's no local record of the land that All Aboard Florida or its related companies own. I've gone to the property appraiser, and it doesn't exist. When the land is sold adjacent to them, it gets platted, and that's the only information we have there. So how do we measure vibrations and noise if you're allowed to go out a certain distance from the tracks and we don't even know what land we're dealing with? That needs to be identified for us. Also, a cooperating agency. According to the Council on Environmental Quality Regulations, the NEPA analysis requires documentation and cooperation with state and local governments that have jurisdiction by law or special expertise. And when you made application, Sebastian made application, Indian River County made application, swiftly denied. And this has resulted in an almost total absence of any local knowledge. There were no scoping meetings in our county. They weren't even advertised here. This fact completely disregards the interests of the people and the businesses in Indian River County. And if you were at the show, the process out of the Indian River State College, you'll notice that in our county, they never even put down Vero Beach or Sebastian as cities. We don't exist right there. And also the bridge over the St. Sebastian River, that's not in Indian River County. That's listed in Brevard County. Totally neglects that the bridge, the southern edge, is in Indian River County, and that the river is completely in Indian River County and winds into the Sebastian Conservation Area. And all of this naturally, the very sensitive environmental and ecological waters and lands there. And that the waters from our lagoon flow into it. There is absolutely no mention of any of this. Also, they're required to deal with climate change and sea level rise. It's not mentioned at all. And these are federal standards. On the subject of environmental justice, this is huge. They have not addressed anything with our minority community. There's federal desegregation zones here that require the school district to run long bus routes, and they will be disproportionately impacted. Local knowledge identifies people up and down the tracks that will cross the tracks to walk to work, kids that will walk the tracks, on and on. So there are no studies or safety factors involved here at all. There's got to be studies. There's just no way around it. And when it comes to socioeconomic conditions, another area they're required to address, we know there are no planned stops in Indian River County because they're a high-speed train. They're not going to be high-speed train if they stop here. I don't think there's many people who are against a train stop here, but it's not going to happen when it's high-speed. These trains are going to be cutting through our communities where they're residential neighborhoods and retail and commercial land uses. Noise, impacts from noise, vibration, vehicular travel interruption, construction impacts, none of these are addressed. They're required to look at property values, real estate taxes, business vitality, and employment factors. None of this is mentioned at all. There's no benefit to Indian River County that has been identified, no alternatives have been offered, and a credible draft environmental impact statement needs to have that information. When it comes to our communities, there's very scant mention of what is referred to as the North-South Corridor in Indian River County. There's no acknowledgement of medical facilities and businesses that are essential to nearby neighborhoods that are all located in close proximity to these rail lines. There needs to be an analysis here with consideration of the expanded freight and the establishment of high-speed rail. In public health and safety, Mrs. Fry brought this forward a little while ago. There needs to be a record of accidents, which include the transport of hazardous and nuclear materials. There has to be a history of crossing incidences and a log of variable crossing closures in order to identify potential threats to the public health and safety. And such a record should be analyzed to provide a remedy to eliminate any threat to the public well-being. Another area that they're to assess are cultural and historic resources. We have significant sites here in Indian River County, and they lack all mention in this statement. Such sites are immediately within the rail corridor, and they document 10,000 years of human presence in the area. Examples are the Vero Man Ice Age site and the Gifford Bone sites. And I could go on and on, but this impact statement was extraordinarily deficient in recognizing that Indian River County exists. I mean, there's nothing that can be said better than that. This impact statement has to be supplemented, and it has to address us. And we're ready to address this as far as the Impact Coalition is deserved. And when it comes to your resolution, totally support going ahead with it. We need that coordination throughout our county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Manous. Further public comment on this subject, the railroad. Yes, sir.
Once again, I'm Donald Hood from 440th Court Southwest. I hadn't planned to say anything else, but after a couple of presenters, I think I need to clarify some things. First of all, I'm distressed to learn about an organization called TIC tonight, when I've been attending public hearings on All Aboard Florida for months, and none of these people showed up and asked the questions. All Aboard Florida made themselves available to answer any and all questions that the public had. So where was TIC? And all of a sudden we have a long list of things that weren't addressed? Well, they could have been if somebody had asked a question back in April or May or June or July. The city's own council, chaired by Mr. Degg, met at least once or twice a month. I never saw anybody there from TIC. First I've heard of it. The gentleman also mentioned life and death situations with the railroad, and I think it's already been demonstrated that the amount of time these new trains will take when they go through a crossing is 45 seconds. It's the equivalent of adding one more traffic light during an hour-long period, or two if you count both ways. So the amount of time for the trains, the high-speed trains to be going through here, is not going to have an effect. I fail to see that if you're in bad shape and it takes 1 minute, you lose your life because you waited for 1 minute for a train to go by. 1 minute. We're not talking about a freight train 2 miles long. There's been so much made of points about the Panama Canal, which has no bearing on this. The Panama Canal, that All Aboard Florida has already said that the Florida East Coast Railway, who's responsible for the freight, plans on returning empty containers. It doesn't make a lot of sense for even a shipping company to go into the port of Miami if the ultimate destination is somewhere else on the East Coast. Why would they bring it into Miami when their shipping rates are cheaper by freighter, unload, and then have an expensive rail transportation throughout the country? Doesn't make sense. And as you go through, I've spent months looking at this, and every one of the, well, not everyone, but 99% of the arguments that people have been making about why this is the death of us all and the world's going to come to an end if All Aboard Florida comes through, you can debate each and every one of these things because the amount of thought going behind them isn't complete. People have passed themselves off as experts on this stuff, and one of the members in this room I want to identify has taken All Aboard Florida apart because they think that they've done a better financial analysis of the company than the company did themselves with their high-powered staff. People wake up. All Aboard Florida's got a really bum rap, and the more you dig into this, the more you find that there's an awful lot of baloney being thrown back and forth. First of all, there's two companies involved. All Aboard Florida is going to be using the same tracks that are already owned by the Florida East Coast Railway. There happen to be two companies that are going to share the same tracks, and they have the electronic and the computer capabilities to do this, so they wouldn't even be presenting it. The tracks have been in existence for 100 years. They own them outright. They do not own the lines of tracks going through the central part of the state that everybody says we ought to use. It's used by another railroad, CSX, I believe, and it's the equivalent of saying, let's run those trains over there. Well, that'd be like saying, let's store all of our supplies from Home Depot over in Lowe's. It makes no sense, but you hear it over and over and over and over again. Use the other corridor, get it out of here. By the way, if you use the other corridor, there will be no stops in the Treasure Coast no matter where, because it would all be inland. Time after time after time, if you look at each of these cases, you see that the arguments aren't holding water by the people that are bringing them up. They want to see it stopped, and that's their number one objective. And most of it revolves around real estate and boating. And let me say this. I accidentally ran into somebody who was a former employee of the Long Island Railroad. And we started talking about All Aboard Florida, and he started laughing. He says, yeah. He said, I saw the same thing up in Long Island. And he said, the funny thing happened. The railroad came through, and the property values that they thought were going to hit rock bottom went up by 30%. People discovered that they could use their property to commute instead of taking their car. Now, obviously, New York is a different situation than here, but the facts need to be listened to before someone makes a ballpark statement saying, they can't do it up in New York, why can't we do it here? Apples and oranges in almost every one of these arguments. I'm standing here as a private citizen with one axe to grind. This is what I want out of all this. I don't have stock in the railroad. I could care less about All Aboard Florida and Florida East Coast Railway. What I want to see is a stop here where we can use this as a resource that's good for this county and good for this city. And there's so much baloney that's been out there. I ask you to keep an open mind when you look at some of this stuff. And take a second look at some of these bogus claims, please, or ones that thought hasn't been given all the way out. Who are the experts that are saying this stuff is true? What is their accreditation to show that they have the knowledge to show what they're talking about? Not one of them said, I'm a rocket scientist and here's my facts about what's happening with the railroad. Instead, they're political action groups for the most part. One or two private citizens have come forward. In some cases, their facts aren't always correct. In the course of attending these meetings for months, I see some of the same faces over and over again, and it just blows me away when I see the same person ask the same question over and over again. For example, one lady kept asking, why can't we use the tracks in the central part of the state? And after the railroad had explained it to him, she turns right around and asks the same question again at the hearings for the FRA. You know, you ask the same question expecting getting different answers. It doesn't happen, folks. So I'm concerned as a private citizen that this whole thing has not been done with the people of Vero Beach and the people of Indian River County's best interest. We have a chance here to get a stop. But if people keep fighting this with inane facts that don't hold water, it's not going to happen. I want to give you another example. Where is it most likely to happen if on the Treasure Coast if they do build a terminal? At this point in time, because there's so much antagonism in this county, I'll tell you where it's most likely going to go. It's going to go to Fort Pierce. Why? Because they have a handling yard already there. Now, most of the other locations where All Aboard Florida is going also has handling yards. Orlando's the new one, and they're building a new handling yard there. Interesting enough, if you go take Google Earth and look down on Fort Pierce, I know we don't like to do that very often, but if you do, what you'll see is a handling yard where there's rail tracks, maybe 10 or 15 rails side by side. And what do you think you have between Indian River Lagoon and the rail yards? Some very expensive homes. And none of those people have raised one objection. Why? Because it's not an issue, whether noise or vibration or anything else. They have homes in the lagoon, and they're not about to give that up. So I know I sound like maybe the only voice speaking out against this, but please, there needs to be a voice of reason on some of this. The facts aren't holding up, and people are trying to manipulate them into thinking or to saying that All Aboard Florida is going to be the death of this county or in this city, and it will not be. In fact, what it's going to be is a wonderful opportunity that's just going to be sloughed away because we're not looking at doing it.
I'm going to comment to this degree, and then I think we move on. I was on the. I am the rail representative for Amtrak, and I went to many meetings and studied the Amtrak situation. And Amtrak didn't happen for a very good reason. The demographics didn't work to serve this community or the communities north and south of us. Also, the cost to the city was in the range, if I remember correctly, and I could be incorrect about this, about $1 million almost, to put a facility adequate for trains to stop here. It may be, and I think we've listened to you, it may be that with the railroad being built that it's somewhat different, but I can tell you that conclusively that Amtrak came to the conclusion that it made no sense to stop in Vero Beach. And I think you also concur in that, isn't that correct? That's correct. So there is that history behind this. I mean, we might like stops, but at least Amtrak thought it wouldn't work. So.
I'm aware of Amtrak's efforts to get a stop here. I think it is different. It's different times, for one thing. Demographics change. One of the things that's going on now that no one's addressed is that young people themselves are no longer buying cars in record numbers like they used to be. The big car companies are having a hell of a time, pardon my French, on figuring out how to sell cars to young people. They don't want this. The ones I've talked to said, we would love to have something like this where we don't have to have a private vehicle to go between towns.
Yeah, I understand all that.
Let me finish, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And the idea of a full-blown station in Vero Beach, you're correct, it will not happen. What could happen, though, is the equivalent of a whistle stop where you, like they say, they're not going to stop. They're running 36 trains a day. They're not going to ever stop here 36 times. What they're talking about, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon. And you can do that within their 3-hour time frame because it would only be 1 train out of their 36 doing it. And so some trains would stop in Vero Beach. Some might stop in Jupiter. It won't be all 36. It'll be special trains at special times.
This final comment on it, the whistle stop was $1 million for what it was worth. In other words, to have a platform that would comply with federal law, it was going to cost the city of Vero Beach, in round terms, $1 million. We don't have $1 million. So,
like I say, I don't know what All Aboard Florida's got planned for financing.
Okay, but
But they have said that their plan, if this is successful, is have fill-in stations on the Treasure Coast. Now, we have the ability to say...
I'll give you the last word, but we need to move on.
I will.
Go ahead.
We have the ability here to have the stop here or somewhere else, but they are going to do it somewhere. Now, whether they pay for it or we pay for it, how that works out, I do not know. But to have us say, didn't happen before, it can never happen again, I don't believe that either. Give this a chance.
Thank you for your comments. And all of there are no easy issues for the students out there. There are always two sides of everything. And one of the interesting things about us as legislators is that Florida legislatures, unlike other states, are forced to vote. So we're going to vote in a minute, and we don't have the choice of not voting. And sometimes the choices are rather difficult, but we do the best we can. Further public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Comment from council. I have one comment, or one question. On November 18th, Monty Falls sent a memorandum to John Winkle of the Federal Railroad Administration. I just mentioned that. In addition, here we have information from the county, and we have a letter of November 5th that the Chamber of Commerce wrote to the Federal Railroad Administration opposing this. Are there other documents or other things that should be considered, Mrs. Turner?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I was going to say, the main thing I think it's so important for the public to understand, this isn't a done deal. There's still accepting comments at the Federal Railroad Administration through December the 3rd. It's great for us to have all these political action groups and other groups, the county, et cetera, or the city, to send in our comments as a whole. But what would really, really get their attention is if they get 10,000 comments from the city of Vero Beach and Indian River County from individuals saying, no, we oppose this. These are the areas that the EIS is deficient in, and we need, it needs to be looked at. So I'm putting out a call to each and every one of you that you could do it by email as well, to send a note to John Winkle. I think we have that address on our website, don't we, Ms. Bach?
Yes, we do.
That's available. So once again, let's let them hear Indian River County.
A further comment on, is there any further staff comment on this resolution? Any council comment?
I have a question. On our resolution, we don't make any specific mention of cultural or historical resources. I know in our resolution that we did a couple months ago we mentioned them, but I didn't know if we should include those. And also, should we have a separate resolution supporting the county's comments regarding the consultant's report about the DEIS?
Mr. Kramer, you have an opinion?
Well, I think we should probably do something to support the county. They've put an awful lot of effort into it, and if it's another avenue to get something more effective working, I think we should do it.
What format?
Well, whenever the county gets their final act together, perhaps we can just join in and support them.
All right, that makes so, Ms. Turner.
I guess what the county has done is they did send us a copy of their comments that they sent into. So I'm not sure, there's not a resolution per se that's going to be that they're going to act on. I mean, they have approved to send those comments in. I mean, all you could do is we could prepare a letter from the city and just saying yes that we support these comments, but I mean, I think we're covered there.
If the council would like, I mean, I could sign such a letter if somebody would draft it. You know,
It'd be very simple. We can draft a letter supporting the county's comments on the EIS. Be very happy.
Is that acceptable to council?
For the mayor's signature.
We didn't answer Ms. Gray's first question, though.
Cultural resources, we don't have a mention of, we have health, safety, and welfare, quality of life, but we have failed to mention cultural resources and the impact there.
Where specifically is that, Ms. Graves?
Well, let me see the whereas, count them. We don't have it anywhere, but in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
It'd be very easy to inject it into the whereas, and this is the fourth one from the bottom on page 2. Whereas the first priority is City Council, City of Vero Beach, Indian River County, Florida, health, safety, welfare. If we wanted to interject in there.
I mean, we have the Vero Man site, which is a huge site of importance, which gives us a lot of, I think, special attention if we can lobby for it. So I'd like to see a cultural resource or in one of our whereases.
That's a good idea. I agree with that.
Did you say we had it in a prior resolution?
Back a few months, like back in the summer, we did a resolution when this initially started happening, where we were talking about the different effects this could have on Indian River County or on the city of Vero Beach.
Because I'm looking.
Yeah. I think we talked about historic downtown and historic properties, but we don't have any mention of historic properties or cultural significant resources in this one.
This is a second reading, are we correct? You can make a motion to approve it as however you'd like amended.
Okay.
I could live with approving it at this point with the condition that the city attorney and Ms. Graves add another whereas, and we'll go from there.
I'm not sure we need an additional whereas. I would like to know where.
Well,
how it would be read.
in a prior resolution, we had mention of quite a few things. This may be what you're thinking of. Whereas all Board Ford project high-speed trains are proposed to travel in close proximity to the historic Vero Beach Downtown District, the Vero Beach Arts District, Pocahontas Park, where many young children gather to play, the Vero Man Historic Archaeological Zone, residential districts such as Osceola Park, on the National Historic Register, an original town and historic buildings such as the Heritage Center, the old diesel power plant, the old courthouse, the Vero Theater, the Vero Beach train station, the Vero Beach Women's Club, and Pueblo Arcade, many of which have been restored at great expense by the private sector, and all of which are listed on the National Historic Register. Were you thinking of something like that?
I think we can just sum it up as cultural and historical resources, historical significance.
There is another whereas that we could interject. It says, whereas according to the draft EIS, all aboard Florida proposes high-speed passenger rail service will increase railroad traffic, railroad noise, railroad vibrations within the city of Vero Beach, Indian River County, Florida, thereby creating a genuine potential detriment to the threat of the health, safety, and general welfare of the residents and visitors of the city of Vero Beach, Indian River County, Florida, and may cause harm to the city of Vero Beach, Indian River County's Florida natural, environmental, and historic resources.
Okay.
And maybe put cultural in that?
And archaeological, because that's specifically an archaeological site that is a perfect place to put it because it is the vibration that will affect that archaeological site.
So I'd make a motion that we approve it with those two words added, cultural and archaeological.
Second.
And thank you, Mr. O'Connor, for the suggestion of placing it there. Appreciate it.
And that's the third paragraph on page 2, the third whereas.
Is there further council discussion? See, no, I'll call the motion. This requires a vote, Mrs. Walker.
Mr. Rold?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. All right, that moves us on to the city clerk's matters.
Okay. We will start with the City Council Committee appointments for 2014, 2015. If you would like, I will go down through each one of them, and let you know who is serving on those commissions now, and you can let me know if you want to continue serving on them or have someone else serve on them. The first one is the Treasure Coast Council of Local Governments.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that meeting is in Fort Pierce, and Mayor Winger serves on that at the present time.
Yeah, and I've been elected vice chair of it, so I probably should continue.
Okay.
I was elected in abstention.
Happens. The next one is the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, and that committee meets in Stewart once a month. Councilmember Craig Fletcher currently served on that commission.
Mr. Old, would you like it, or would somebody else like it?
I would really like to be able to stop and think about what ones I'd like to be on. I'm not really ready to jump into them yet.
I would take it provisionally, or if Mrs. Turner wants it, she certainly may have it.
I'd be glad to do it, but Mr. Earl, I think, it's time to get, you better voice an opinion or you're going to be volunteered for something too, so.
I'd still like to stop and think, and then at the next meeting, I can figure that out. Okay.
Mrs. Turner, you want to flip a coin for it, or?
Well, if Mr. Earl's not willing to make a commitment, do you want to defer this to the next meeting?
Well, why don't I take it provisionally? If you want it, you can have it. The only reason I say that is going to Stewart's not a bad deal for me. My family is in Stewart, so the rest of my family is not here. So that way it's covered, and if you want it, it's yours.
I'd be glad to take the regional planning, but like I said, I still want to make sure Mr. Earl has a opportunity of these.
We're on. Okay, you would like to have it?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
I will cover the regional planning.
Okay, the County Economic Development Council, Vice Mayor Kramer currently serves.
I think that one's going to change to 2:00. Are they working on that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's on council day, so I would like to see them change that, actually.
I know they're working on changing the time of that.
But you have been our leader, and Main Street and all the rest of it. I mean, I think
I'm happy staying there unless somebody else
I think we
has a
need
burning
you
desire.
there, really.
Okay, the Tourist Development Council, Mrs. Turner.
I've served. This committee only meets on a quarterly basis. I've served on it for just the last year, but if anybody's else interested in,
I would be interested in serving, Ms. Turner, if you don't want to.
That's fine, Ms.
Okay,
Grace.
thank you.
The MPO, currently former council member Craig Fletcher served, Vice Mayor Kramer, and council member Pilar Turner was the alternate member.
Can we move Pilar Turner up to a regular member? She's an alternate, as I read it here.
I am.
I mean, she's up to speed on it. It seems silly. Do you really need an alternate?
They do need an alternate. They do require that.
I can serve as an alternate.
Treasure Coast League of Cities, that commission meets all through the Treasure Coast every other month. Mrs. Graves currently serves on there, and Mrs. Turner is the alternate member.
If anyone would like that, they are welcome to it.
I'll take that. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
All right.
I think the Beach and Shore, Amelia's been good representation. She succeeded me and has seemingly got more progress than I ever got.
I'd like to stay on that. I have a couple of projects going forward that hopefully we'll be able to bring forth to the council in the next few months or so. So if I can stay on that.
Okay.
This next one, I don't mind staying on, but it doesn't meet,
Good.
Those are the best kind.
I wouldn't give that one up.
Okay, the Enterprise Zone. Vice
Tammy,
Mayor Kramer.
are you keeping score here? Because if we jump in for one, does that mean we got to take off for another somewhere?
Well, I don't see Mr. Old having any yet.
He's staying away.
I think he might be the smartest one of the bunch here.
Yeah,
Randy, you could have that one if you'd like.
I'd really like to be able to jump into some of these, but I really don't know much about them, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about them before I jump into them, if you don't mind.
I would be happy to do the Enterprise Development Agency. I'm really
Okay.
impressed with what Helene has done on that.
Oh,
And if I can
absolutely.
assist her in any way, I'd like to.
Okay.
Okay. The county,
You know it meets at 8:30 in the morning.
I'm an early riser.
Okay.
the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee.
This is
That
another
is
one
not meeting much. Yeah.
that doesn't meet.
Okay. Do you want to stay on that one?
Sure.
The representative on the FMPA, Mrs. Turner, is serving on that.
I'd really like to put Mr. Old on that, frankly. And Mrs. Turner has worked hard and broken her heart over it. And I don't think, no matter what anybody did, FMPA was going to cooperate with us. But I don't know. I think we're at the stage that a change can't hurt anything, and she's broken her heart at it. I wouldn't mind to have the change, frankly.
I've been up there and met with them, and I'm interested in the idea. If you would like to make a change, I'll be glad to take it on.
Well, I'm glad we found a committee that you'd like. That's great.
And you know, in all fairness, you know, what we've got here is going up there. I think it's every month, sitting through meetings, asking them to help us. And so far, I don't think they've moved an inch from where I started on the Finance Commission 4 years ago. I don't think there's been an inch of movement, and I would hope there'd be some movement. And I don't know that, you know, that if I'd been there, or if Jim had been there, if anyone had been, if we'd all been there, it would have been any different. But I think it's time, really.
All right, certainly have no problem with that. I mean, leaving here at 6:30 in the morning once a month, drive up to Orlando, sit in meetings, and returning at 5 o'clock in the evening is not, I'm doing that for 3 years, and if you will check the records, I have never missed a board meeting at FMPA.
And you've never missed coming back with notes, and you've never missed back telling us
Correct.
about
So-
the Taylor swaps that they shouldn't have done. And
No, I have no problem with that.
thank you for being so gracious, and good luck. You got the worst one.
I do, however, think we have made some progress, though, Mr. Mayor, with it. Since I have been on the board and asking questions, the actual board of directors are now starting to look at their budget a little bit. They're starting to ask, what really is a swap? Why are all our, when I go, why our swaps are all underwater? They don't even know what the term was. So, I think it's been helpful in that way, at least to get a better look at the financials.
All right, next one, Mrs. Bach.
The liaison to the downtown Main Street, Mr. Kramer's currently serving on that.
Yeah, I'd like to stay on that. We still have a few more things we want to iron out.
Can I serve as an alternate in case there's a meeting you can't make?
Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. I wasn't able to meet the one today at 5 o'clock, but for obvious reasons.
Okay. Liaison to the cultural arts, Mrs. Graves.
I'm happy to stay on that. I'm also happy to let anyone else serve on that would like to. I guess it's mine.
Okay. Chamber of Commerce, Mrs. Turner.
This is an important one, and one you've been very active in, so hope you want to continue.
Certainly, I'd be glad to continue.
This last one is a committee that no longer exists. This is the Amtrak thing.
Oh,
It's
so we can take that one off.
It's gone. But you need to put there in place of the Energy and Environmental Committee, the Florida League of Cities, which I've served on for 3 years, and which we've lobbied for surface water, and we're going to be lobbying this year for some regulation on stormwater utilities. So I would like to continue to serve on that one.
All right. And I have an opening on the Tree and Beautification Commission, and we recently received an application from Charles Tim Fontaine, who is interested in serving on that commission.
Oh, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Okay, and my only other item was the discussion of the December 16th City Council meeting. That is our second meeting in December. It's been customary in the past that we cancel that meeting because of holidays, but I did want to bring it to council for their consideration on what they want to do.
I got no problem canceling it.
No, they cancel.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that brings us to city managers meetings, or city managers matters. Jim, you have 7A.
Yes, this is a culvert that we have going under the street, which has deteriorated to such a point that it's really endangering of the street and the access. So we are proposing to do a replacement with a box culvert, which means that the whole street is going to be really changed in there. But the box culvert will have a longevity much greater than a metal pipe that is presently existing and will help the flow. The other thing we're going to be doing is putting that flexi pave across the stormwater inlets and be able to catch the materials before they go into the canal and ultimately into the lagoon. And we did receive bids on this. We are recommending the low bidder that goes to Rose. And it's, I think it's an improvement that's way past its time and something that will help that whole intersection. We're getting some money from water and sewer because there are water and sewer services across the existing street. And then we're also using public works money, but we're short about $50,000. We had some projects that are, we're going to go into Vero Isles. We could take the money from that because this addresses a similar type of issue. We would still have money for Vero Isles to do the engineering and the reporting of that project and put that into the next year's budget for improvements of the stormwater controls there. But this is a project that really needs to be done, and we are recommending we award the contract.
Are you looking for consensus or a motion?
I would like to have a motion on this because of
I'll make a
the volume of
motion.
money.
And we should open it to public.
All right, public comment? No public comment, closing public comment, council comment. All right, I made a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Is this a voice vote or?
Yeah.
Voice vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes 5-0.
Thank you very much, and we have had several comments from the neighborhood, so I think they're going to appreciate the end product when we're finished.
Further matters for the city manager, and I under my matters, I have a number of policy things, but we can take them up there.
I have a few questions, Mr.
Go ahead.
I received several calls from Ocean Drive businesses still concerned about the parking issue. And I know you recently had a meeting. Can you give us an update?
Give you an update. As a matter of fact, we have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow in which it's we have quite a diverse group. We are not only including the people from Ocean Drive, but we also have Main Street downtown on 14th. So we have a good collection of folks that are addressing the concerns. Some of the recommendations that are going to be considered probably tomorrow is changing the 2 hours to 3 hour parking requirements. Also, some type of traffic or some type of parking controls on Sexton Plaza has been discussed. There's not a consensus on that yet, but that seems to be where the real critical issues are. And another issue was signage. We have constructed some new signs showing where guarded beaches are to the north and the south. But the committee at the last time we met discussed we needed signs that are a little more obvious and the traffic. There was a group that met with the Tim McGarry, our planner, also Monty Falls, the Public Works Director, to look at locations and the size of signs. That is supposed to be discussed tomorrow as well. So we're taking the issues one at a time and trying to address those as we go through. The parking enforcement on Saturday is still a debated issue that is depending on who you talk to down there. And so we're sort of put that in abeyance at this particular time. We're also investigating and looking at options. For example, we have shown mulligans where their employees could park at Riverside Park, and they have said that they are moving people with a golf cart, which can hold 4 people, but I'm not sure how effective it is. We have talked to the Driftwood about them leasing a van and moving their employees, because we still have plenty of area that we could move that parking. Those are the type of issues that we are discussing at this point.
And thank you. I realize that it's going to be a difficult issue to resolve, but I mean, here we are in early November, and Saturday I went down and driving on Oceanside, and certainly the parking issue is evident.
It is, and as the season keeps coming on us, there's something to be said about congestion as commerce.
True, it's a great success.
Yeah. Well, some of the other areas that have come up and things that, from my standpoint anyway, I would hate to see lose, because I think it's part of the fabric. For example, the farmers market. We are trying to take a look at that and seeing what actually happens there. One of the issues, and if you go up and down the street, you will notice that if you get to the Beachland, is right sort of in the center of where parking issues. You can go just a little bit to the north, possibly to where Holiday Inn ends, and then you go south, but not to Humison Park, and that's where the real parking congestion seems to be. And that even is reflected if you go up on Cardinal, and then you look, for example, south of those shops, and you go to Humison Park. It really doesn't have a parking issue, because those are beachgoers down there, and there's not as many shops that are open. And so we're still trying to distinguish the differentials as we talk to the shop owners there, because it's one of those that everybody, one size fits all, and I'm not sure that that's going to make it work. We do have concerns, and have been voiced by myself and others, that if we do start the Saturday enforcement, what you're really going to get are the folks that are probably from the mainland that go into the beach with their families that have done that historically. And I agree, they're not the people that are going to be shopping in some of their fine shops down there. So we do have that issue that is going on. But we are trying to address it and getting a considerable amount of input, I will say.
Another question on Dodgertown. The Dodgertown Pines property, I guess, we've been released by the county?
Not yet, but we have submitted to them the final paperwork from our perspective. What we did is that we met with them, and I think there's a meeting later on this week, in which we discussed the issues, what they wanted, which we had no objection to, and this is some right-of-way, especially along Aviation. But up on 43rd, there is going to be intersection improvements there. We wanted to make sure the businesses that are located inside the city are not damaged by that. So we took what is being referred to, and what's the name of that plan? Cure plan. We took it up to those businesses and said, this is what is being proposed in the Cure plan. They gave some recommendations of minor changes. We have submitted that to the County Public Works Director. Doesn't seem to be any real major concern over that, so we're still working through that exercise. Hopefully we'll get the release from the county and accept it through the city.
Great. So at least maybe getting closer to freeing up that debt payment that we're taking out of our 1% sales tax.
That is correct.
Thank you. And on our utility issue, I know that the county's having their hearing with the Public Service Commission, I guess, on the 25th of November.
I'm going to raise all of those questions. There's a whole litany of questions there, but we can raise them all now if you like, but it's going to take a while.
I'd be very happy to address it. There is a hearing in front of the Public Service Commission itself. As you know, we have the staff recommendations. Typically speaking, the Public Service Commission goes with those staff recommendations. We also, following that, we will have our mediation. And the mediation process that we're following doesn't appear to be really constructive. Hopefully we will, because we're going to negotiate in good faith. But the end result doesn't look real solid from my perspective. So I am going to be recommending to the council that we find ourselves a litigator for moving once the court is filing becomes a court suit, and I think that's going to be very, very quickly. So we'll probably be looking for someone. Chef Wright is very good in the Public Service Commission. He is very good at understanding the utilities. But once we get into the issues pertaining to the litigation, I think you're really going to have to need a litigator in that process. He and I have both talked to several attorneys to look at. I would recommend that we do an RFQ similar to what we have done for other things, get qualifications from various law firms. And in that stage, I'm not really sure that the utility experience is going to be as required as the fact that, because this is going to be a lot of contractual agreement litigation as opposed to utility litigation.
Yeah, and one footnote on that, Mr. Wright has asked the mayor, which currently is me, to be present at Tallahassee on, I believe it's the 25th. And apparently that's the protocol. It's one of the things I wanted to bring up. The various officials will be there. I know there'll be somebody from the county and so on.
I find that, I guess, just at the county meeting today, they said that the city was not sending anybody from the council. So I'm delighted to hear that at least you have planned to do that. I would like to remind you, however, too, is that this is a council of 5 members.
I understand that, and that's why this is one of the issues that yesterday morning I said I'd like to bring up and get the council's judgment. It is more Mr. Wright and Mr. O'Connor said it's a question of sitting there and showing a presence, and they feel it's necessary. But if the council doesn't want me to do it, I certainly won't do it. But this is one of the things that I wanted to bring up as a policy.
I'd certainly like to see someone, from the city participate. But I think unless you're, that it needs to be a joint council discussion.
And that's what we're doing. I said yesterday we were going to do that. I said a few minutes ago that I was going to bring it up.
Now there's 2 things, Ms. Turner, that may have been discussed, and I did not listen to the county commission. One is the mediation, and we did not anticipate having elected officials at that. And then the other is the PSC.
PSC.
And it was requested that someone with the title of elected official be there.
There's another issue involved with that too. Let me go to the smaller one. If there is, if at some point in time, as we have talked about, if there is a referendum, there's concern there. That's another field of law that may have to be concerned. Jim, do you want to cover that? I think we need to talk about all this and have it understood.
Yes, one of the parts of the lawsuit pertain to the 2008 fact that we were supposed to hold a referendum and establish a utility authority if the results of that referendum came out in the note. At that time, it was determined we didn't fall within the scope of what the state law said. It's ironic that the law was actually under the Public Service Commission, and it seems that if we had fallen under it, the Public Service Commission would have come back and said, no, this applies to you, but they did not. But anyway, since 2008, but it is part of the litigation that they wanted us to follow that law. So we started making provisions to try to accommodate that. And the issue is, in this litigation, you've got several elements. One is the Florida Power rates. And the other is the getting us out of the city, and another one is this utility authority. So we're trying to pick those things apart one at a time, but the utility authority seems to be something we can actually concede on if the council is willing to do it. But we need to find the parameters of how that works and exactly what is entailed. This is not a referendum that you can send over to the supervisor of elections and have her hold a referendum, because it really are just the meter. The meters are what you're doing.
Customers.
Yeah, the customers. And so there's no way to determine who is the customer with the supervisor of elections. It's going to be a convoluted process.
Is the only way you can establish a utility authority with the referendum? That's,
No,
yeah,
the city.
I didn't think
No.
it was the only avenue, so I
No.
thought if we could establish one without a referendum.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were just trying to, I think Mr. Wright's concept was, this is what they've alleged in their complaint, so that give them as close as possible what they are complaining about in the complaint. But if the council ultimately decides to offer something different,
yes, the city can develop a utility authority at any time. That's
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor.
And I think Mr. Wright's
I
going to
think
hear
Mr.
you
Wright's concept was to be prepared if there was an election to be able to. It is a very specialized field in that it's not registered voters or anything of that ilk, and he felt that he needed some amount of help, was what was conveyed.
It sounds
to me.
like that would be a far more complicated process if we're going to concede it to do it as simply and as less costly, as possible than to try to do one of these referendums when it's by meter person and percentage wise. If it's something we're willing to concede, then find a.
It may never come to it, but I think he wants to be prepared. Is the point? Isn't
and
it,
he
Jim?
plans to be here on the December 2nd meeting.
So you can go into detail.
Because at that point, he will have at least the research that he's been able to do.
Yeah, I think it's just a waste of money at that point to even pursue that option.
Well, what that also does is it precedes the December the 17th mediation in case there's something that you all want, a message you want to send.
Does it still look like we'll have a December 17th mediation?
Yes, ma'am.
That the mediator's available now?
Yes.
Yeah, and
great.
he said he would take it on as well, as of yesterday.
But Wayne, I don't believe we understand the precise rules of that mediation. Is that correct or incorrect?
I have not heard back definitively. There's a split of opinion. The city manager and I and Mr. Wright tentatively have agreed. However, the county and Shores want to conduct the mediation is fine with us. There's kind of a conflict in state law. You have one chapter 44, that deals with mediations. It says it's confidential. But then you have the Sunshine Law that comes into play. And I personally, even myself, I spoke with Pat Gleason in the Attorney General's office, and she always will err on the side of trying to avoid any potential violation of the Sunshine Law. So her opinion is it's not clear. So I know the county attorney is leaning towards saying this needs to be an open and public process, which flies in the face of what mediation is, because then there's not even a point with caucusing with the mediator in private. I mean, so it's just another public meeting if that's the route we go. But we're not going to dispute and fight the issue. If they want it in the open, we'll have it in the open. We have nothing to hide, as Chef will tell you.
Does that sound okay to council? I mean, that's an interesting concept.
And the county commission and the Shores may send an elected official, but hopefully by our next meeting we'll know better, and then the council can decide if you want to send an elected official, if they do.
All right, there is yet another one of these. Well, there are two more on the electric, as a matter of fact, since we're covering them. On December 5th, we have this legislative session here. And last year in the legislative session, there was legislation proposed which attacked the city of Vero Beach. And there were actually 4 pieces of legislation, but dealing just with the electric. I feel that we should let Mr. Wright and Mr. O'Connor and whomever would be the spokesman, and I have no idea on that. It might be me as mayor, but we should be prepared to defend the city. For the public, private legislation, what it represents is an exception that legislatures make to do something that really doesn't comply generally with Florida law. It's an exception procedure, and it is fraught with peril that something could be brought forward that would be dangerous for the city. So I think we should at least be representative. We can ask to be on the agenda. Last year, quite frankly, I sat in the 3rd seat down below, and there were 2 gentlemen that sat in the 1st and 2nd seat, and they made a presentation which I didn't agree with, and I should have gotten up and disagreed with it. I did not. But I do feel that City Council should be involved in a decision of whether we're prepared to defend at the legislative session. I will tell you that I believe that it's the responsibility of City Council to defend the public against lawsuits wherever they may occur, whether they're the one we have now, and to defend it against legal act or legislative action would be prejudicial to our cause. So I would request that we follow Mr. Wright's counsel, which is that we have somebody, I don't know who, present. All we have to do is file a form and say we want to be present. But that has not been done because it has not been sanctioned by City Council.
Well, I think we've got to file a form, at least
Yeah.
so that you have the option to be there. Yeah,
Right. These are the kind of matters that I think are, when we do the budget, we have a chance to talk about policy, and these are really policy matters that we all must decide. I think there's another thing too, Jim. You're going to be visiting OUC. You told me yesterday.
Can I, excuse
Yeah,
me,
go ahead.
just to conclude on the legislative thing on the 5th?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought the council did ask that you would present a letter about the short-term rentals, and that
Yes,
that would
this-
be presented at
that-
legislative session.
That's I have that down here, and but there would really be two subjects.
Okay.
In other words, there would be protecting against legislative action against the city of Vero Beach in relation
Electric
to
utility.
electric,
Okay.
and there would be one for the rental. We'll discuss the rental in a minute because we just need approval, but the work on it is really being done by legal. I'm certainly not doing it. To move on to the last one of these that I know of, Jim, I believe you're going to OUC tomorrow. Is that not correct?
Yes, I am. Myself and Chef Wright will be meeting with the folks at OUC. We have sort of heard in our comments from the Finance Commission, Utility Commission, and City Council a couple areas that we would like them to help us address, and one is the term. We would like to have a shorter term if at all possible. If we're going to give an out, we would like to have an out for both parties, and so we are going to be presenting that. We have broached those two items with OUC and asked them to be prepared to discuss that tomorrow, which they have agreed to do. So we're going to try to work on those two items with them. That appears to be two things that really stick out in this whole process of the contract discussion. We also understand the concern over St. Lucie and the transfer of those assets. But and we will cover those, just not sure what we will have to negotiate with if that's where we're going in.
I think the thing that's important here is, the good news is we have 15 years approximately this coming January 1st left on a contract that I personally don't think should have ever been signed, but it was. And it's a very disadvantaged contract, to say the least. I suppose the good news is that OUC has come forward and offered us something better. But I feel that the five of us have to look at all alternates, whatever that means, and have to look at possibly shorter alternates, every alternate that's possible as to what's the best interest of the people. In other words, it may be that this contract has a $50 million penalty in it. I mean, I think we're going to have to deal with the math and say what is in the best interest of the people. And I don't think it's. I'm very pleased that Mr. Wright has come forward with an improvement, but I think we have. And the assumption was made by some people that we were just going to accept that. And I think the point is that Mr. Wright and Mr. O'Connor are going to bring us alternates, other approaches, could be continued to negotiate, and then we're going to have to make some hard decisions. But I would very much doubt that exactly what was offered is where we should end. That's my personal opinion.
And that is a message we're taking back and have conveyed back to OUC, that the existing amendment does have some flaws in it from the elected official standpoint with the city of Vero Beach?
Yeah, I mean, they can exit in 5 years. We can't. And as a commodity guy, I can tell you that being caught wrong in a contract for longer than 5 years is a terrible thing. And if you look at what's going on in the world of electricity, particularly in Europe, the situation, I think it's going to spread to this country. The situation is there's gross oversupply in Europe, and whether it's Aeon or Suez or whoever, they have suffered materially. I think it's more likely, even as Florida grows, that the market will be weak than strong. However, I know that no one knows where markets are going. But I don't think we want to be any longer than on anything that we can possibly help. I really don't. My best advice.
Well, it's tough for us to make any decisions on it. I think it's good to have the options, and we'd like to hear what comes of it.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've got to do, and I think that's the clear message, is that we need options brought back to us, and we're going to have to talk about them.
Well, the first offer was a pretty good offer. I mean,
Yeah.
they moved a long way, which is remarkable. Okay,
Which is great.
Maybe let's see the second one, see where that is. Yeah.
That's what we're doing. We're trying to convey that. Everybody understands it has to come back to this body before any action is taken. So,
are there further matters for Jim? We could.
Let's just sort of make sure I understand where we're going here. One is that everybody understands that Chef and I will be working with Wayne, that we may be looking for a litigator as we go into this exercise and move forward in that. And then, Mayor, you're going to be representing us at the PSC hearing. Is that what I'm hearing also?
I will be there, sitting there with a dark-colored suit, and a dark tie on, and
Try not to say
and
much,
I won't
please.
say anything because it's a legal procedure.
And then also you're going to get on the agenda for the item for the legislative.
I will get us on the agenda, and I'll be the person, but I don't know that I'll be the spokesman. I don't know that I'm the best spokesman since it's a legal matter.
Nope. Okay. Those are the three takeaways that I had out of it. So, unless there's any other questions of myself, that's all I have to report.
Why don't we take a 15-minute break to 8:20? What I've got here, I have two further policy things. One having to do with the rental situation, which I have a position on, and the other one having to do with a so-called stormwater utility. That stormwater utility thing is going to take me about 15 minutes. I'm sorry for that, but it's a major policy initiative, if it to be considered at least. So is 8:20 okay? Sure. So we'll resume at 8:20.